It's not often that I discuss topics in African landscape or just everyday characteristics of African civilization, but I thought this little known history was worthy of note. Royal gardens tend to symbolize the wealth and splendor of any given society. We see them in just about every human civilization. Because of its ubiquitous nature throughout human history, I thought we would speak about one royal African garden that made a great impression on foreign travelers. What up, African world? It's Home Team here, and welcome back to another video of African history, culture, and worldview. By supporting this channel on Patreon, you're helping in the creation of these videos and contributing to this content. On Patreon, you can find more in-depth courses on African history. And with a word from my sponsors, there's a new social media platform dedicated to educating and uplifting our people. No longer do we have to be censored for speaking our truth. Our Black Truth is Black owned and operated, and a place where you can post your businesses and even monetize your content. You can download the app at Google Play or the App Store, and you can visit the website at ourbblacktruth.com. Links to everything in the description box below. To begin, I wanted to start with a personal reflection on this history and then get into the historical record. I thought this history was interesting because it has to do with the kingdom of Deomi. Oftentimes when I read about the kingdom of Deomi, gruesome images of the Atlantic slave trade pop up. I also see images of the Deomi Amazons fighting and dying on the battlefield, and to my regret, the brutalization of enslaved war captives. We even hear about how the state of Oyo was oppressing them, along with hearing about their journey in fighting for freedom and sovereignty. This is not to say, however, that other kingdoms or empires throughout the globe did not have similar histories. But for whatever reason, there's more attention drawn to that aspect of Deomi. I think if we're honest, the history of Deomi is really not an easy one to look at. But that's just me. Perhaps you guys have a different experience. Regardless, given my personal reflection, the royal garden of Deomi literally inspires the exact opposite feeling. And it's something I wish we in the diaspora knew more about. Deomi's royal garden was apparently a wonder to behold, and foreign visitors were seemingly awestruck by its construction and beauty. It's incredible that so much beauty can simultaneously exist in a place with significant warfare. Anyway, now that you guys have suffered through my personal observation, let's get into the historical record. In this video, you'll see several comparisons between African and European civilizations, but it's not intended to analyze worth, but simply intended to document what was recorded by foreigners, as that was the best way they knew how to describe things to their audience. So please keep that in mind. In reality, what I call the Deomi Royal Garden was really known as the Royal Road, a road that took people to the capital of Deomi, which was called Abomi. But it's important to understand that this was no ordinary road. Along this royal road was glorious intent. There were trees planted of various backgrounds, religious shrines and sculptures, giving it a spiritual component, and multiple palaces where religious figures and elites stayed. It would be a crime to call it just a road. 19th century European visitors to the kingdom of Deomi were not easily impressed, certainly not by any infrastructural refinement. So when one after another perceived grandeur in the Kana-Abomi road, it was no small compliment. For French travelers, the road was magnifique, superbe, et merveille, fort belle, vraiment belle, or des plus belles. For British travelers, splendid, or perhaps the ultimate accolade, as broad as any thoroughfare in England. This remarkable road was a route that took people from Deomi's Atlantic port to the royal capital. The purpose of the road was said to allow the kings of Deomi to travel to and from Kana in style. So, from the outset, it was really designed to be a symbol of the affluence and majesty of Deomi statehood. When Deomi was subject to the Yoruba, Kana was a place where Yoruba messengers collected the annual tribute, as the Fon people of Deomi were subject to the Yoruba state of Oyo. King Gezo began to first challenge Oyo's supremacy by slaughtering those messengers in the early 19th century. Kana possessed royal palaces and royal tombs. Some French observers described it as Deomi's holy city. Cana became known to some European visitors as the king's country quarters, and even the Versailles of Deomi. In some respects, it was a sort of second capital. The royal road is believed to have its origins with King Kapengla in 1779. King Kapengla ordered all his subjects to set about clearing the paths, giving each cabasir a string measuring 10 yards, the intended width of roads. Thus, a spacious communication was opened not only between each town and the capital, but all the way down to the beach. With incredible labor and fatigue, a passage was cut through the wood at Apoy. The gullies were filled up, and the hurdle bridges over the swamps were widened. When this work was completed, the king said, with a vainglorious air, "If anyone be desirous of paying me a visit, he shall not have it to say that thorns or briars impede his march." This royal road was cleared often. One traveler noted that there was not one blade of grass or stone on the road. Diverse trees were planted alongside it to provide frequent shade. The distance of the trees were calculated, and over time, they grew very large. In some European eyes, the farmland on either side was as lovely as the road itself. It was intensively cultivated with sorghum, corn, beans, and yams among field crops and palm oil and shea butter among tree crops. Forbes wrote that cultivation in the Cana area rivaled that of the Chinese. For Burton, the land of Cana to Abomi was emphatically the Garden of Deomi, showing a wondrous soft and pleasant aspect, a succession of palm orchards and grain fields. In this so-called Garden of Deomi, there existed religious shrines. More than 60 were counted by a Frenchman. Cleanliness and neatness in certain places cleared for worship was frequently mentioned by foreign observers. Shrines of certain gods were clearly visible for all to see. Military units were immortalized along the royal road, male and female troops, typical of the Deomi kingdom. The most important shrines were attended by priests who dwelled nearby. One of the highest ranking priests, the Agasonno, called Deomi's Archbishop of Canterbury by Burton, had his country palace along the royal road. One very telling aspect of Deomi during this time was the fact that the royal road really didn't have any defensive posturing aside from a few structural things. This really revealed the confidence of Deomi's security during this time. One European traveler, a Methodist missionary, gave a very vivifying reflection on the Deomi road while he traveled on it at night. He almost takes us there with his words. Under the beautiful, soft shades of the twilight, it was a splendid evening. I rode thoughtfully along, admiring the silvery rays of the moon as they played on the soft and elegant foliage of the locust tree, and the different varieties of mimosa and acacia. Kabata, with his people, his umbrella, and his banner, were just near enough to be distinguished. Though Miwo, who now came behind, was out of sight, I could faintly hear the sounds of his drums. All around me the scene was too romantic and exciting to admit of anything like a just description from my pen, but the impression of it thrilled through my soul. I imagined the activities of the Deomins with their banners and colorful umbrellas and the shade of their constructed tree formations helped greatly in what he calls a romantic scene. The Deomin Royal Road Garden, if you will, is something we in the diaspora don't really hear much about, yet it made such an enormous impression on foreign visitors. I think when we discuss royal structures in world history, we can now include a segment about the wonder and splendor of Deomi's Royal Road. Well, I'm all out, guys. If you like these videos and want to help in its continued production, consider supporting the home team on patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. Know thyself. Remember your ancestors. Peace.